We're getting right on into this series between Zest and Hurricane, and as you see, spawning in the bottom right, playing for Team Raise Your Edge, it is Zest.
Our first map is going to be Nightshade, and on the left top side, we're looking at the main base of the man who's having quite the Cinderella story so far. It is Hurricane.
Now, without talking about too much exactly what's going to go down in this matchup, because, guys, we cannot predict what these guys are going to do. Korean PvP has been crazy for a long time. You know, when guys are like, oh, I'm going to proxy this, I'm going to proxy that, that's a bit cheeky, right? Well, that almost seems the norm these days in PvP, and all three tech routes are viable. You can go for Twilight Council, you can go for Stargate, you can go for Robo. Heck, you can even add down extra gateways, go for Push, or even extra gateways and go for a Nexus Expand. What they will do, we don't know yet.
No, I love that you mentioned the last one as well, because people always seem to focus on the first tech building, and that's obviously normally an important point in PvP. But yeah, the good old 3-gate pressure is actually pretty good as well. You don't have to straight up win the game. We're not 4-gating like we used to. I mean, there's a tiny chance we might see one player go super wild and indeed 4-gate. But just opening up with 3 gateways and only make gateway units, put on pressure, keep your opponent contained, then expand behind it, that kind of stuff can actually be very good as well. Especially if you can then get a scout off with a hallucinated Phoenix, know what tech your opponent is building in their main base, and then you just counter that tech with what you think is the best. It's funny as well, because in the old days we were always like, Robo is good against Twilight, Twilight is good against Stargate, Stargate is good against Robo. But that little triangle, that's not even necessarily the case anymore, because the timings have changed a little bit in PvP. We're working with different economies, so that's not as true as it used to be. There's still some truth to it, but those things are not facts.
And we do see Zest making a Stargate on the map and a Robo for Hurricane. There is no one best strategy in this matchup, which makes it very volatile. You see Hurricane scouting around like a madman over here. That probe, Christopher Columbus, just scouting everywhere he can. And yeah, I like what you say, Kevin, because it is no longer a guarantee of whether you're going to be ahead or not. And if we tend to forget things in StarCraft with regards to patch changes and stuff, they actually nerfed the cost of hallucination and making it much easier to scout for a Protoss, meaning how do you hide your tech? But Hurricane, perfect. This is a really great start for him so far.
Yep, what a way to start your best of 5. I don't think he revealed the fact that he scouted this either, knowing that there is a Stargate out there. That first Oracle is going to get chrono boosted immediately. Hurricane opened up with Adepts, correct? Are those the little Adepts in the middle of the map? Now, Adepts obviously not fantastic in sniping a pylon. Good job there, cancelling the shade. You got to be a little careful here, because in the straight up fight, the Stalkers are quite a bit better than the Adepts. They've got more range, they're slightly faster, but of course the Adepts can get out of trouble with their shade ability.
And Roddy, how do you feel about this? He got his Oracle scouted, right? Because I think the pylon did have enough vision to see it. And behind this, he's going for a really fast Nexus. And on the other side of thing, we have the Warp Prism, the 3rd gateway in production as well. It looks like Hurricane's just going to be piling on the aggression very early on.
But Hurricane doesn't have a shield battery in his main mineral line, right?
He does. Okay. So he's ready for that kind of harass. But the Oracle, it's just like, hey, I know you're a good player. I know you scouted me. So I'm just going to use some of this Oracle energy just to pick off one Adept early on. I think that was a smart decision by Zest.
Yeah, it's very unlikely you're going to get a whole lot done. Hurricane is even building a pylon there in a crazy world. He can even decide to build a shield battery or two there and potentially pick up units with the Warp Prism. Not something we see super often in one-base scenarios, but there is a chance. Sniping one of the 2 Adepts, by the way, is very big in this matchup, because 2 Adepts one-shot a probe, but 1 Adept, it takes a little longer. There's a good chance that your opponent is going to save their workers. So I do think that was a sweet pick-off for Zest, but he still has to worry about the aggression that's heading his way.
I'm really scared for Zest. Like, this is a lot of investment that he's put into that Stargate, the Oracle, even getting the Blink that won't really come online for quite some time. And we do see a lot of Hurricane marching across the map, and this Warp Prism is buying a lot of time for Hurricane. These Stalkers immediately march down to the natural of Zest.
Yep, that shield battery is actually going to take a lot of damage immediately. The Stalkers are going to evacuate, and he does snipe the Prism, so that's pretty big, but Hurricane should still be able to apply quite a bit of pressure. He's warping in a Sentry offensively. This is a big moment, guys, because if that Sentry shows up in the natural, Zest will no longer be able to walk down this ramp. So this is a very big deal. There is an Observer over here by Hurricane as well. Zest has to be so careful, because if he gets force-fielded out and he ends up losing 3 or 4 Stalkers, that's a disaster. The Sentry is hidden. Zest does nobody get force-field. Does not trap Stalkers, but this Nexus Ben, I think, is dead.
It super is. I mean, this was a pretty decent trade for Hurricane in all respects. Like, he got the Warp Prism killed, sure, but it lulled everything to the main base, going for a neat little stasis, but Hurricane's too quick for this. He's on the ball this game so far.
Don't forget that Hurricane can still pick up that pylon as well, and that's something I think he should absolutely do, just to be annoying. I don't think killing the Stargate is that important at this point, but picking up the pylon, that's always nice, because it could supply block your opponent.
Did he forget about his Stalker outside the natural there, or is it just like a scout? Oh, I think he did totally forget about it, so little bit of a blunder there by Hurricane and Zest. He's now out on the map, and he has Blink, which is pretty scary.
That's a pretty sick weapon though, those two adepts. They can actually cause a lot of trouble because Zest does not have a wall off, and all of the units are marching towards the other side of the map. Does he leave the probe here? No, he does not. These two adepts could cause a world of pain to Zest.
And on the other side of the map, while these adepts are marching into the main base, totally uncontested, he recalls back home with all his army here.
I love it. I actually absolutely think that's the correct call. Otherwise, you're going to end up losing 5 or 6 probes even, and in one base scenarios, that is just deadly. The good thing is that even though he had to recall, he did get into the natural of Hurricane, and now Zest did get the confirmation there was no Nexus yet.
You know what's cool as well by Zest? He's gone full Alpha Star here. He's up to like 29 probes here on one base. I know he's getting his Nexus faster, but despite everything going wrong for him, and I think the resources lost tab is probably a little bit worse for... In fact, no, it's worse for Hurricane. What did he lose?
He lost 2 adepts, he lost a Stalker.
Okay, so I mean, quite a few resources here for Hurricane. Yeah, he's got a stockier army with the Immortals and such. Even getting a second Warp Prism now, quite a few sentries on the map. But Zest... the game's kind of been reset back to like a normal state right here.
Yep. And you know, the fact is, people don't really like opening up with Blink Stalkers immediately, because there are certain pushes that come out of a 2-gate robo opening that are just almost impossible to deal with. Think of, let's say, 2-3 Stalkers without Blink, 2 Adepts, 2 Sentries, an Immortal and a Warp Prism, and then even if you have your Blink tech, there's just so little you can do about it, because if you focus the Immortal, the Warp Prism is going to save it. If you focus the Warp Prism, the Immortal deals too much damage. That's why people don't like going straight Blink anymore. But this is actually a kind of scenario where having Blink is not all that bad, and don't forget that Nightshade is also a pretty good map to eventually blink into the main base if your opponent does decide to move out.
Kevin, I don't know what's happened with Hurricane here, because he hasn't made a probe for the past minute or two. Like, he was really severely supply blocked.
Well, those are the kind of pushes I'm talking about, right? It's a lot of sentries, and this is actually in a straight up fight. Hurricane's army is very powerful right now. Zest is going to try to get a couple of shield batteries, but I really think if you have Blink Stalkers, you need to be out there. He needed to buy some time, because having Blink defensively is good. A couple of hallucinated Immortals as well. That's kind of funny.
It's very funny. Like, I was really scared about the amount of force fields that he had, but going for that, and now he's kind of getting ready to push in here. The Observer was a good scouting tool, nice force fields, but really good counter blinks, and that's a lot of shield batteries keeping those units alive, and so far, very nice defensive force fields by Zest.
Yeah, maybe Hurricane gave Zest slightly too much time, right? Don't forget that Charge is almost done as well, and a couple of Zealots with Charge are going to be very useful here. One Immortal of Zest is going to fall very quickly, though. Zest needed to kill that Immortal, but he's not able to yet. Look at that Warp Prism doing some serious work.
Oh, Zest is defending very well, though. The force fields of Hurricane were good, but Zest, he's marching in now. The probes hugging all the Stalkers of Hurricane, and Hurricane's army is just falling. Zest with such a solid defense here, barely losing anything in the grand scheme of things, and GG is called.
Zest is best in PvP. That was actually very sick. I was a bit worried that he wasn't out there, that he wasn't trying to buy some time with his Blink Stalkers, but he got enough time in the end to get those shield batteries up, and the defensive sentries for Zest, they made all the difference. Because if he's not able to keep those sentries and Immortals from Hurricane at bay, then he just cannot fight that. Even with good blinks, even with shield batteries, he simply didn't have the same firepower, but the sentries bought so much time for Zest and just made it a really awkward fight for Hurricane.
Yeah, definitely. Hurricane, like, he went for the all-in, obviously. The Nexus that he had was a little bit of a fake, but if he cancels it, then Zest knows exactly what's that he was scouting pretty darn meticulously with that Oracle. So Hurricane went for a little bit of a mind game there, but Zest just far too solid in game one. Getting all those shield batteries too in the right locations, the force fields. Yeah, they kept units at bay, but he just blinked behind them and just microed very darn solidly.
And the most impressive thing is that during all of that, Zest had Charge finishing up. He didn't even need it. He had a Forge. He had +1 more than halfway done, and he was still able to defend. I really like that you pointed out how quickly he built that Twilight Council, after he went for that proxy Stargate, because I do really think that made him just feel overall a little bit better about what position he was in the game.
Yeah, he just had a really good grasp of where he was in the game and where his opponent was, and when he lost his Expo, it just felt like his next step of knowing what to do. He was very, very quick about it, and spawning in the bottom right side of Ephemeron, it is Zest.
That's the first game you gotta feel pretty good about. Your proxy got scouted, didn't do that much, but you were still able to turn it into a convincing victory. Let's see what this man has in store for us here in game 2. On the left top side, spawning as the blue Protoss, it is Hurricane.
A little bit of a shaky start to this best of 5 so far. Zest just kind of brought out his raw power, raw micro ability, and Hurricane caught a little bit off guard there, it does feel like. Even though we tried to go for some sneaky moves with the Adepts, which was really cool, it just felt like Zest did everything right.
Why did Hurricane leave the natural so quickly after he picked up the Nexus? Like, yes, there was one Oracle out on the map, but I think technically if he would have wiped in 2 Stalkers defensively, if he wanted to expand, maybe it would have been better for him to stick around a little bit longer. Of course, Blink was somewhat close to finishing up, but if you blink across a force field, then you still don't have Blink anymore, right? Then you're forced to just stand there and fight.
I think that, yeah, you're right. There's a few odd things, because it's not as if that Oracle was going to deal much damage in his main base either. He had a shield battery, had the ability to warp in back at home,
yep.
And his Nexus was actually later than Zest was as well, even though Zest lost it, rebuilt it again. It was just very odd.
It may not seem like a big deal, but just being able to warp in, let's say, like 2 more sentries of that pylon he had there, maybe he got afraid because he lost the Warp Prism, I'm not exactly sure. Let's not forget about that. That was a big boo-boo. Like, he used the Warp Prism to drag the Stalkers out of position, and that was working out perfectly, but you're just not supposed to lose the Prism. Don't forget they got a little more expensive as well since the most recent patch.
This is a rather ballsy proxy location. I mean, one little probe just going like almost the normal scout pattern could see it, but
nobody does that.
It feels like one of those things where it's is it so obvious that it's not obvious anymore, and it could be just that. Like,
we'll check every corner before we check the center of the map, okay? Because you're not supposed to proxy in the center of the map.
Absolutely, mind games galore here. On the other side of things, and look, he's not going to scout it, is he? One of the most obvious locations you can imagine, and you know, who would be mental enough to do that? Well, Zest would.
And this actually could go kind of bad, because Hurricane is opening up with 4 Adepts. Now, Adepts can obviously deal a lot of economic damage, but like I've said before, Adepts do not fight well against Stalkers. Immediate chrono boost on this Immortal as well. Hurricane, his Adepts, are they going to spot everything? Yes, they do. Now I really wonder, what do you do with your Hurricane? He cancels the Shade there as well, and that means he's probably going to end up losing at least 1 Adept.
Wow, even uses the recall and still loses one of the Adepts. I was actually a bit surprised that he cancelled the Shade there, because I feel that
he didn't know.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's like the Shade vision is actually quite tiny, so obviously if he lets it finish up and he shades on top of 2 Stalkers, everyone's like, wow, why would you do that? But now he cancelled it thinking he's safe, and then suddenly 2 Stalkers show up. Now, the Hurricane is going for his defensive robot, he's also getting a shield battery, so he's taking this very serious. He's also building a pylon on the other side of the map, maybe just to warp in 2 Adepts eventually. This is going to be awkward, man, because I think Hurricane is almost always going to end up losing at least 1 gateway, if not 2 gateways.
I do like the fact that he's trying to buy time here and do something and be annoying, and even sending the Adepts back home now. Zest kind of just patrolling around in the middle, like he's walled off his main base, so he can't expand super well, although he does have a probe behind his natural, I do believe, so maybe that's...
Oh, what a catch.
And he sees the counter warp in by Hurricane here.
A little bit shocked to see him warping in 2 Stalkers. Don't forget, Hurricane is not able to recall at this point because he already used that for the Adepts. So that is a Stalker going down. Stalkers are expensive units in 1-base scenarios. And this Stalker will also fall. Very unfortunate series so far for Hurricane. Mate, why are you moving out? What is he doing?
Zest seems all over this game, honestly. Like, his scouting's been really good. Even they got detected, he's killed 3 units. And
this is such a crazy move. Ooh. I mean, he wants to unpower the robo. Yeah, but there's a Warp Prism as well. You can just repower the robo. The Immortal will pop. I find this a really crazy move by Hurricane. He's going to try to buy some time with force fields, I guess, and he will get away with it for now, but that is not an army that's supposed to be in the middle of the map.
No, definitely not, and his army's significantly weaker too, and now Zest is like, well, mate, I'm just going to start marching at you. He's got a much stockier army.
If I'm Zest right now, I'd be okay with containing. You snipe that pylon on the low ground, you definitely snipe the first gateway. Does he get a sentry here? No, he does not. But that first gateway, you just can't save that if you're Hurricane. There is no way. And Zest can just contain and expand at this point, and this is starting to look incredibly good for the Protoss representing Razor Edge.
Yeah, the supplies are a bit deceiving here. Behind all this, Zest is getting a Stargate at home and a Nexus. The Stargate, what do you think about that? Is that just for Phoenix to be safe against anything, or pickups?
Stargate is actually good against everything, because a very likely follow-up for Hurricane here is that you go for a Robo Bay and then you get Disruptors out. Well, guess what Phoenix are pretty good against, Ben? The answer is Disruptors, so I actually like it. He's just feeling very good. Also, if Hurricane would make a lot of Stalkers, Zest already has Immortals. Immortal Phoenix is really sick. And of course, Phoenix has shut down War Prisms like no other unit in this matchup.
I love how decisive Zest has been, and great force fields here.
Jeez, what a performance by Zest. Zest is actually playing close to perfect PvP. Yeah. It's obviously you can say like, wow, it's so crazy to proxy that first robot there. But every decision Zest has made so far in this game has been on the money.
He has been super decisive. We talk about it a lot of the time, but Zest right now, he's just playing on pure instinct and pure reaction, and so far, he's been right every step of the way.
Yep, that Phoenix is almost out, by the way, and that could be a disaster for Hurricane. If I was Zest, I would immediately send that Phoenix to the War Prison. Maybe he doesn't want to reveal the fact yet that he has a Stargate, because I don't think Hurricane is aware of it. There's still War Prism harassment happening in the main base of Hurricane. Can we take a look at that real quick? Zest just being annoying, unpowering the Robo, unpowering a gateway, sniping a couple of Stalkers as well. And he can now just work on probes, because it takes forever for Immortals. I mean, Hurricane is like, you know what, I've had enough of this, but as long as Zest doesn't lose the Immortals, this is actually okay. You don't really need the Robo if you have 2 Immortals and a War Prism already.
And going for the aggressive warp into this army.
This is winning the game.
Enough. Yeah, it's enough to take out Hurricane, I feel, and Hurricane.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, getting absolutely dismantled Zest. He's not even breaking a sweat this series so far. Truly playing a phenomenal PvP.
Was a little bit of a head bump though. Like that's like one of those moments where you whisper to yourself, yeah. I mean, what a game. Like if you talk about momentum, if you talk about things going well, from start to finish, almost everything went well there for Zest. And if I'm a Hurricane right now, I'm gonna start questioning my Adept openings. And like, man, maybe I'm just putting myself in super awkward spots. Because Adepts are good, but if Zest is not taking any risk at all. You can make the game complicated for yourself, have a probe on patrol and warp in a pylon or a battery over and over again. And Zest is like, no, why make life hard if I can make life easy? Full wall off. Yes, I'm kind of telegraphing at this point what I'm doing, but I don't care because I know my build at this point is already good against whatever you could possibly do because you're opening up with those adepts and I don't care that you know how serious I'm taking my one base aggression because there's nothing you can do about it.
And the crazy thing is Zest has actually been getting an earlier Nexus pretty much every game against Hurricane while winning the fights as well. And that Stargate play, just being one step ahead of everything, it's just very clean play by Zest. I know we all know he has very good micro, but now it really feels like he's just ahead of his opponent mentally, which that is very cool and such a gift to have in a best of 5.
Yeah, he is displaying great understanding of this matchup. Just seems to know all the right tech choices at any given moment in the right top side of World of Sleepers. Our previous Intel Extreme Masters World Champion looking for his second victory. It is Zest. Obviously a long way to go, but things are looking good in the round of 12.
And over here, he needs your help, guys. It is Hurricane.
No matter what happens, of course, in this game, Hurricane had a fantastic showing at this IEM Katowice. Not a lot of people predicted him to make top 12. Not even a lot of people predicted him to make it out of the offline qualifiers. But he got the job done. But he's in some serious trouble here. And kind of like to see him go either back to basics and then it's open up with a couple of Stalkers and take the game from there. Or if you do want to go with Adepts, then you better be the crazy one and you go with that full out or all out one base aggression because it's Zest who is dictating the pace of these games and that's not where you want to be if you're Hurricane.
No, as soon as you play to your comfort zone and bring your opponent out of his regular game, that's when you're already feeling pretty darn good about things. And I feel a bit sad for Hurricane because every time we've seen him play, it's at least on the main stage, it's been like he's been faltering a lot, but then we hear about him winning all these games when not streamed. So maybe this is a case of like being quite nervous and
it's possible, right? Yeah. I mean, even though he has been there before and he's obviously not brand new to the scene, that could very well be the case. I mean, I was really fighting rooting for Hurricane. Yesterday I was like, guys, we got to get a Hurricane series on the mainstream, you know. He made it through the offline qualifiers. He deserves that. Well, he had a bad showing. It was a PVT, if I recall correctly, against TY.
TY, yeah, got absolutely smashed.
Yep, he got absolutely smashed. 2 games, 2-0. I was like, well, that's it. I mean, at least we tried. And then he goes back off stream and he starts beating Zero and SOS. And I'm like, what? Hurricane, why couldn't you do that on the mainstream, my friend?
It is crazy to see. Let's hope he can get it together this game, because so far, Zest is just looking like the superior player. This game, Hurricane's opting for a rowboat back at home. No real early game shenanigans from him. What does he have out on the map, actually? Just probes?
Yeah, I think that's just a probe.
Okay, but he is opting for the 2 Adepts again, whereas Zest back at home, he's gone for the Sentry, the Stalker. The Sentry is used for hallucination scouts later on. So the one difference in their play, yes, Hurricane will have a little bit more map control, but if Zest does survive, I feel that his build is quite stocky, quite standard, and usually revolves into getting an expand early on.
It's funny how big these maps are, but if you look at the mini-map, there's just like little stuff going everywhere, because they know it's all about the proxies, and scouting is so important. And we used to scout like 1 or 2 obvious locations. These guys, they check every corner of the map.
Hurricane opting for a Warp Prism again.
Maybe he's going to try to put on some pressure. Like he could. I kind of like where this is going for Hurricane, because he's going to be the aggressor. Maybe he can get a cancel on that Nexus, and then he can contain Zest, and if he can just contain him a little bit longer while expanding at home, then for the first time Hurricane can actually be ahead in one of these games.
And we also have to remember that Hurricane hasn't really scouted yet, or at least he doesn't know what tech he's got. Oh, now he sees it though. And he used the hallucination, right? Because, he used the hallucination, so he couldn't force field. Now he gets a full-on scout here, gets to see the shield battery in the main base, the Robotech and all that jazz. Starts his own Nexus up behind all this. Also gets a pretty darn quick observer.
Yep, so maybe he's not going to be the aggressor here. His Robo was technically a little bit quicker. There is a chance that Hurricane will just warp in 1 more Adept, and that he's going to try to get 2 Adepts into the main base with his Warp Prism. Look at Zest having a probe on patrol there. That's actually, I wonder if that's to spot a Prism potentially and unloading of the Adepts, or if, because obviously Zest did scout, right, with the hallucinated Phoenix.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually sick. I don't see this very often.
No, I think Zest has been very, very careful. He's obviously respecting his opponent, but he's showing a real understanding of what Prodosses are capable of against him. Here, is this really going to work with the Oracle being a hallucination? I'm not sure. Oh, my, okay. I thought he was going to unload in that little dead space over there, but Zest, he's quite quick to warp in. Also a decent pull. Actually, those Adepts didn't kill that Probe there.
Cancel the shade, exactly. I think this is okay for Hurricane. He's already getting 4 kills. He could have indeed gotten 1 more.
Oh,
as long as the Prism survives, and the Prism will survive, please don't go back in there. I think that was all right by Hurricane. Good reaction by Zest indeed, but Hurricane still got some good value there. Anybody would be okay to trade 1 Adept for 4 probes.
Oh, certainly. Back at home, Hurricane's got his Immortal production running. Right now, this feels the most stable opening that Hurricane's had in this series. Zest, though, he is ready to count or put on the counter pressure here.
That's actually kind of insane. He's got 2 Sentries and an Immortal in there. Maybe the Adepts will show up in the natural. I wonder if he's going to reveal the fact that he's got Sentries in there. Yes, he is. So what is he going to force within? The Stalker, maybe? Now there's an Immortal popping at Hurricane at a very fortunate moment, I would say. Even though it's in a little bit of trouble, the Immortal of Zest is winning the fight.
Wow.
I mean, Zest...
Oh my god. And getting 9 probes at the natural. This is just domination right from the get-go. There's no other way to put it, guys.
Wow.
64 supply against 48. Zest just outclassing his opponent.
Yep, Zest is manhandling Hurricane in this series. There's no other way to put it at this point. I cannot believe that he got 10 probes there with the 2 Adepts. Obviously, I mean, Hurricane had to respect the Warp Prism. It's an Immortal inside of that Warp Prism and a couple of Sentries as well. And there's always a chance that Zest decides to warp in a few more units. But that was absolutely perfect by Zest. I have rarely seen the 2 Adepts into the natural and 2 Sentry Immortal Warp Prism in the main in this phase in the game, but it worked out. Zest, though, is he making a big mistake? The answer is yes, and that is exactly what Hurricane needed to get back into this series. Finally, Hurricane catches a big break. That was 2 Sentries and an Immortal, I guess?
That was a lot of cash down the drain, and yeah, now the resources lost is almost fairly even. Hurricane's trying to put on some counter pressure here.
Wow.
The game just got reset entirely in one fell sweep, and that was really sloppy by Zest, I feel, flying over that big army.
That was indeed a very big mistake, but hey, you know what? Maybe for the entertainment purposes of this best of 5, that's kind of what we needed, man, because otherwise this game would have been close to being done already. Like we said before, it is tough to make comebacks in PvP unless those kind of mistakes happen. That's of course something that was not supposed to ever happen. Zest, I think, is still in a good position despite all of that, and that kind of tells the tale of how far ahead he really was. But Hurricane's still in this game now.
Yeah, certainly. Like, it's given him a chance for sure. Zest is still ahead in workers. I think he's quite a bit ahead in tech as well. His Twilight Council was obviously done much earlier. The Templar Archives on the field, and also he had a bigger bank to throw down a lot more gateways.
What is weird though is that Zest didn't start an upgrade, right, of his Twilight Council. Isn't he? I mean, like, it's supposed to be charged here, even though a lot of the Resonating Glaive and Depths all-ins have been very popular over the last month. But you're supposed to get one or the other, and I truly have the feeling that he completely forgot. I think he's a little flustered about what happened. Look at the money that Zest had in the bank as well. I don't think he's aware of it. Okay, now he starts charge.
Okay.
A little late, but...
It definitely is a little bit late, but this Warp Prism will be saved by these two Immortals in the middle of the map. I still have to be... I'm holding my breath every time one of these Warp Prisms flies in, but Zest starts his third base, so the clock is going to be probably on Hurricane a little bit here to get something done.
Hurricane might actually be able to get a fight. See, I thought with maybe +1, and then right when Zest is investing a little too much in the economy, Zest is going to get his own forge as well. Maybe Hurricane feels like he's not in that bad of a spot because he has a much quicker forge, and upgrades are a very big deal. Fighting with +1 against 0-0 is nice. Hurricane finding a little bit of economic damage here as well. At the same time, trying to shade into the natural cancels this shade, and that means that the Warp Prism is still safe. We've got an Archon drop that's spotted on the left top side of the map as well. Hurricane, actually, I don't hate his position that much anymore because he's got +1 at this point, and these Immortals are still going to town.
Yeah, I love this little Immortal drop. The shade was really good too, picking up a couple of pylons here and there. Back at home, as you put it, Kev, his +1's finished now. He's now up to Archon tech as well.
Zest not again? Zest?
Oh my god. How often... Hurricane as well, he was just like, okay, something else is happening on the map.
Yeah, he's microing Immortals and a Warp Prism. I mean, we can't really blame Hurricane for that one, but that could have been... If Zest would have just clicked at a certain location and would have flown over 4 Stalkers and an Archon, that Prism would have gone down as well, and that would have been an absolute disaster. Right now, I gotta say though, Hurricane doing his absolute best to find some damage, and he's been able to find some damage. He's getting a couple of workers here, a couple of workers there. He will now pick up 2 Stalkers as well. He's getting some good value out of this Warp Prism.
He hasn't made a probe for a long time, so his third base, it's not going to be... In fact, if we see the saturation there at the third base, I think it's... Yeah, it's only just started getting probes on, so he's probably transferred from his main base here, but he's very happy being on 42 probes by the looks. Oh, now he's starting to produce. I feel that his economy management has been a little bit off in this series. Like, Zest is just getting a lead, so even if he does do fancy moves where he gets a few Stalkers here and there, the numbers game is just... It's better for Zest.
Yeah, but I think he was banking a little bit of money. It looked a little bit deceiving, but that's because he just didn't warp in all the units yet. I think with the amount of Archons that he has, I actually think Hurricane is going to be okay here. He indeed could have squeezed out a few probes a little bit quicker, but technically he did have ideal 2 base saturation, right? He had 42 workers, and maybe he's just like, I don't want to build probes until my Nexus is actually done, and I know that my opponent's Nexus wasn't a complete fake, because we have seen players lose games in PvP, because they went up to 55 workers, their opponent is at 42 or 44, and that could just be all she wrote for a PvP. I mean, Zest is pretty serious about this because he hasn't even started +2 yet. Hurricane wants to buy some time. He's got shield batteries on the way. What's the Archon count on both sides? 5 against 5.
And that is a lot of Zest just marching in here, even from the bottom with his flank as well. Zest coming in from every angle he can. Warpins from both sides. Zest, in fact, both their supplies are vanishing here. The Archon at the top tanking like a madman. Probes being pulled by Hurricane as well, but it looks like there might just be too much Zest here. Hurricane trying to hold on with the Immortal juggling, but no, there's just too much Zest. Zest looking so strong in this best of 5.
How were all the Archons still alive for Zest like a minute into that battle? The Immortals are going to be, go down as well, and that is going to be all C road for this best of 5. Zest won't slip up in this game, but that did not stop him at all. Man, his PvP is good. Real performance.
Just super solid for such a volatile matchup and for such a variance of openings. Zest just showed a masterclass of being ahead in a game, and even when you make a big blunder like losing the war